After being a nobody, you became the king of darkness. The protagonist is a broken boy, without a dollar in his pocket, just like me. His town is being attacked by monsters, and things are not going as expected. The protagonist leaves with the children, but little by little everyone leaves the server. When the protagonist arrives at his town, he is lonelier than my love life. While the protagonist, who by the way has no name, is digging, this old man comes out of nowhere, and he asks where the town is. He tells him that he is literally standing on it. Seeing how thin the protagonist is, the old man gives him a Big Mac and a Coca-Cola. While eating, the protagonist tells him that they are in the realm of darkness, but their king doesn't care about anyone. The old man asks him why he thinks that, to which the boy tells him that if the king cared, he would try to make everyone happy. That's why he digs a hole, because in the dark, the light shines brighter. The old man, who by the way is called Skiers, doesn't give a damn about that and instead tells him that they have to fight. The old man tells him that those who have power have the decision to help others or not. The protagonist doesn't know what he's talking about, but the old man continues his sermon until he takes the sword from the boy. But only for a moment, because remember that the protagonist has the power of the script. He takes the sword and, with breakdance moves, somehow manages to take the sword from the King of Darkness because, yes, Skiers is the king. But since he has no time left, he was looking for a successor, and he has done it. The new Prince of Darkness has been born. A lot of RGB light comes out of the protagonist's body, giving him a lot of power. The old man tells him to take his sword and go to the capital. There will be a friend who will train him and take care of him. And he leaves the server. Or well, not yet, because the old man tells the protagonist that when he arrives at the capital, he has to proclaim himself the prince. And now yes, the king leaves. Meanwhile, in the realm of light, Queen Iris is defending her town from the monsters along with her NPCs Faiz and Seema. After the fight, Seema comments that the queen has the power to finish off the Shadow King. But she would have to resort to the full power of the runes, which gives power to all the beings of light. The queen is worried because she feels that true darkness is coming, and she is not talking about the protagonist, who, by the way, has already arrived in the capital. Luckily, he meets the guy the king mentioned, Bull1ed. The bad thing is that, upon seeing his king's sword, Bull1ed thinks that the protagonist stole it and attacks him, but the boy tells him that the king gave it to him and that now he is the new prince. Just like that, Bull1ed changes his attitude and tells him that he will take care of him and takes him to his house. Remember that Iris was worried because darkness would come. Well, she was right, because this weird guy named Bal appears and brings several problems. The soldiers and wizards try to attack him, but Bal notices this and goes straight for them. But just then Alantia, the king of the elves, appears and asks them to go defend the people. And since Fios knows that there are many monsters in the city, he tells the others that they have to split up. Meanwhile, Alantia was fighting with Bal, but he quickly realizes that his spirits won't be able to do much for long. At that moment, the queen appears, facing him with her sword. At the same time, Fios encounters two soldiers of darkness and tells them to surrender, and they do so, because in reality they tell him that they are only peasants who have been forced to fight. But when they say this, a dark force compels them to fight against the kingdom. Going back to the queen, she manages to fight against Bal using the magic of the mother rune. Although she is strong, it is not of much use, because Bal, with one blow, manages to send her flying. He tells her that she is very fast, however, her attacks are very weak. Faced with this, Iris asks the mother rune for help using magic. But Alantia reminds her that it is dangerous, so the elf decides to send his spirits to support her and, seeing this, Bal is disappointed and leaves. When they are alone, Alantia asks Queen Iris to help him search for survivors, and she does so like everyone else. While using magic to find more people, Seema tells her that the Dark Kingdom attacked them and, although her soldiers managed to defeat them, there were humans among them. Now, in the castle, Bull1ed is with a monster, who tells him that only his soldiers have died in the battle against the light. But Bull1ed doesn't care about this and, suddenly, a great shadow appears and tells them both that, regardless of the cost of soldiers, they must defeat the light. On the other hand, the protagonist Bull1ed gives him a lot of books for the boy to read and, in addition, tells him that not only he is the aspirant to the King of Darkness, but that there are more candidates. And it is precisely for this reason that he must strive to be the best and defeat them all, which our boy takes seriously. On the other hand, we see a girl surrounded by a bunch of soldiers. Her name is Grossa, and she is not weak at all, because when she sees some monsters approaching, she easily eliminates them. She may not be weak, but she is distracted, because she doesn't realize that there is a monster behind her. When she thinks that everything is over for her, the protagonist appears and saves her. And not only that, but he also wins the girl's heart. The protagonist tells her that in that place he practices fencing and that he will be the next Hawkeye, to which the girl only blushes and invites him for a coffee. At the place, he tells her everything, like that the one who is chosen will have the opportunity to use the great black sword. But what neither of them realizes is that another boy is listening to them. Days later, Seema is with the queen, but when she sees her, she notices her worried face. The queen tells her that she is only thinking about the recent battles they have had, but Seema tells her that everything will be fine. Then, she has a memory of when she and the queen were candidates for the throne. The two wondered what it takes to be a good queen, and, as none of them knows, they go to ask the queen of that moment, which, for some reason, is more like literally a light than a person. When leaving, Seema tells Iris that being a queen would not be for her, because she would only spend all day in the palace, and that would be boring. She also reminds her that she and her family have dinner that night. Iris goes in search of some fresh vegetables to bring as a gift. When she arrives at dinner, everything goes well, even for Faiz, who accompanies Iris to her house. The boy wants to take advantage of the situation to tell her that he is in love with her, but he can't. Instead, he only tells her that when she is the queen, he will protect her with his life and is willing to do whatever it takes for her, to which Iris only responds with a thank you, like the girl I like when I declared myself. Anyway, the next morning, Iris finds herself reflecting on why taxes are so high these days, but out of nowhere, some tentacles of darkness come out from the depths. Iris wants to go ask for help, but she knows that there is no time for that, so she decides to do it alone. She prepares herself with all her power and, with Swordo at 100%, manages to stop the darkness. And not only that, because with that act, the light chooses her as the new queen. The end. Going back to the protagonist, who still has no name, the boy is ready to go to the tests to become king. But he doesn't do it without Vala's blessing. When he arrives at the place, Grossa tells all the candidates that only one of them will be the new king and wielder of the Great Red Sword. The first test will be to face some monsters, only 4 will advance and 2 will be disqualified. When the test begins, everyone shows why they have been chosen, especially this guy who, if you remember, is the one who was in the bar. On the other hand, the protagonist, seeing the beasts, can only remember that they were the ones who killed his friends from the village. So he takes his sword and, in a second, defeats them. However, the mage girl is having trouble, because her magic is not strong enough to defeat the monsters. Just when she is about to be sent to the sky, our boy arrives and saves her. But instead of receiving a thank you, the girl tells him that she doesn't need it because she is an empowered woman. Everyone else is also annoyed, because that meant that one less person would pass the test. But they don't have much time to argue, because the final boss appears, and he is not weak at all. He begins to defeat them one by one, even the big guy with the axe. However, he will not succeed if the protagonist is there, because the boy takes his sword and sends the monster out of the server in an instant, which means that now only he and the cute boy remain. Later, the two talk about why the protagonist saved the girl. He tells Adele that he only did it because someone needed help. But Adele is against that, because, according to him, to be the king of darkness you don't need to help others. For the protagonist, that is not the case, and if they want him to do that, he will find another way to become the king of the pirates. When Adele hears him say this, he can only remember his childhood, when no one helped him. Please, bring the smallest violin in the world. Now, the final battle to know who will be the new prince begins. Adele tells him that he cannot be the king because he is too weak, but the protagonist says nothing to him. He just keeps enduring the boy's bad breath. Grossa, seeing them, thinks that the two are at the same level, but she notices that the protagonist is not even trying. And she is right, because when he decides to, he takes Abel's sword away from him. Abel asks him why he doesn't finish him off, to which the protagonist replies that, in his new world, that is not allowed. This enrages Abel, who throws himself at him again. But, just like the first time, he can't do anything. Now that he is in check again, he accepts that he lost against the protagonist. Basically, he applied the Naruto redemption technique. Finally, the protagonist takes the great sword in his hands and declares himself the new king. His tasks begin soon, because at the exit Valas was waiting for him, not only to congratulate him, but also to give him his first mission. He must travel to the realm of light and deliver a message. But he will not go alone. Grossa and Abel will accompany him on this mission. This excites the protagonist, because he knows that this is the beginning of a new beginning, a new world between darkness and light. The next morning, the boys travel on a ship that sails through the clouds towards the realm of light. As they approach, Adele warns the protagonist that, although they are special envoys, they are still in danger since the war is still ongoing. The moment they arrive, they are received by Pius, who, distrustful, threatens them with his sword, believing that they may attack them. Faced with this, the protagonist also tries to draw his, but Adele intervenes between the two, apologizing for their lack of courtesy, and explaining that they are the special envoys of the realm of darkness, whom they were waiting for. Next, Adele asks the protagonist to deliver the letter. Pius, with some doubt, orders one of his soldiers to receive it. At that moment, Adele asks Pius if there is any possibility of stopping the war, but the answer is blunt: you were the ones who started it. Hearing this makes Adele explain to them that their king is the only one who wants the war, since the royal knights do not agree with it. Adele's words make Pius remember what some dark soldiers told him days before. Taking advantage of the moment, Adele asks them to try to get along during their stay, because when the new Dark King rules, peace will return completely. His attitude makes Pius lower his weapon and decide to take the message of the Dark Realm to Queen Iris, while the envoys wait. After reading the letter, Queen Iris asks Pius to allow the boys to approach the castle. Pius goes to look for them and, after seeing them enter the Realm of Light, Grossa orders the soldiers to return home. Thus, the ship returns to its kingdom. As they walk through the streets towards the castle, the protagonist is happy to see the people of the Realm of Light strolling, playing and doing their daily lives, as if the war did not exist. However, suddenly, a woman is startled to see them. Adele explains to the protagonist that people see them as bad people and that the first thing they should do when he is king is to reconcile the inhabitants of both kingdoms, the Realm of Darkness and the Realm of Light. A little later, Fius tells them that they have arrived at the royal hall and asks them to wait for the queen to arrive. After seeing her, the protagonist is impressed and Adele kneels to introduce himself, explaining that they are envoys from the Dark Realm. The queen tells them that, although relations between the two kingdoms are not the best, there is a common enemy, Val. He has appeared in both kingdoms, destroying everything in his path for no apparent reason. But she believes that even if they manage to defeat him, the situation between the kingdoms could worsen. The protagonist replies that this could happen with the current king. But the next one thinks differently. Adele intervenes and tells them that the Dark King is thinking of leaving his post soon, so they hope that peace will return between the kingdoms. This makes the Queen's advisor ask if what Adele says is really what the king wants. Adele, without hesitation, replies that although it seems contradictory, that is what he said. After hearing him, the Queen tells them that she needs time to think about her answer and assures them that it will not take too long. Meanwhile, on the ship, the soldiers who brought the boys ask their captain to give them names to identify them. He decides to call them Archival, Basque, and Chance, but the three complain because they don't like them. Grossa immediately appears to tell them to stop making a fuss and clean the ship from bow to stern before returning home. After leaving the soldiers busy, Grossa walks to the castle to tell Valas how the trip went. On the other hand, in the castle, Fius takes the boys to their rooms because in theory they are guests. Before saying goodbye, the protagonist asks Fius what Queen Iris is like, which makes Fius think that the question has a double meaning. Adele apologizes again for their lack of education and explains that their only intention is to meet with her to attack Val, but that everything depends on the Queen's decision, so they are willing to wait. When they are alone, Adele asks the protagonist to behave better so that he doesn't have to be apologizing all the time. The protagonist, however, keeps thinking that perhaps the Realm of Light wants to attack them after finishing off Val, but Adele tells him not to get ahead of himself. Later, Adele goes to his room and the protagonist is left thoughtful, especially about Queen Iris. Elsewhere, Iris also reflects on her decision. The next morning, the Queen sends for them and asks the protagonist how the people in Black feel. He replies that everyone is scared by the damage that Val has caused and that is why an alliance can change many lives. His response makes the Queen understand that the intention of his visit is true and she decides to accept the alliance. After the meeting, Fius is left alone in the royal hall thinking about Queen Iris, but his sister Chima appears to inform him about the reconstruction of Medes and to warn him that the magicians have returned. While Fius watches his sister, she shows him the message from the boys, in which the Dark Kingdom requests the help of the Light Kingdom to fight against Val. In exchange, they offer a truce in the war between both worlds and leave the two envoys as guarantee. Chima, surprised, assumes that Queen Iris is fighting against Val, and her brother confirms that she is. Fius explains that he has stayed in the kingdom to watch the boys, although he still doubts their true intentions. Chima, somewhat tired, decides to retire, assuring that they will continue talking later. At the same time, Val appears in the Dark Kingdom, where Balas, Grossa, and his army await him. Balas, without wasting time, faces him directly, threatening to cut him with his sword. However, Val responds with a gust of wind, blowing him away. Immediately afterwards, the Monster Brigade launches the attack, forcing him to retreat to the position of the archers, led by Grossa. Everyone fires at once, but their arrows fail to damage Val's armor. Val, noticing that Grossa is the leader of the archers, decides to attack her, and another group of monsters joins the fight. After an intense confrontation, Val falls to the ground and the kingdom's magicians take the opportunity to cast their spells, trying to trap him with magic bars. However, Valis recovers quickly and returns to face him with his sword, attacking him repeatedly. Val, using his magic, manages to paralyze both Balas and Grossa, assuring that it is time to finish them off. Just at that moment, the King of Darkness intervenes, making his allies disappear, and surrounding Val with a dense black mist. Val, without wasting time, launches attacks in all directions, killing the monsters that try to attack him from the darkness. Balas and Grossa watch the battle, unable to do anything. When Val believes that the King of Darkness can no longer harm him, he prepares to finish him off once and for all. But before he can attack, Queen Iris appears behind him and uses her magic to summon chains of light, trapping him. Valis and Grossa, seeing this, are happy as it means that the boys managed to complete their mission on time. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the King of Darkness uses the power of Iris chains to lock Val in the maximum security prison, Tartarus. With his enemy defeated, Queen Iris feels that her mission is over and returns home, although worried about what the Dark King might do in the future. The next morning, after a well-deserved rest, Chima finally meets the boys. When greeting the protagonist, she feels curious about him and observes him as he runs towards the window. At that moment, she realizes that Queen Iris has just returned flying to the realm of light. The protagonist, seeing her, runs hastily to reach her, arriving just in time to prevent her from falling to the ground from exhaustion. The protagonist helps Queen Iris to sit on the ground so that she can feel more comfortable, showing himself visibly worried about her condition. She, with a slight smile, tells him that she fulfilled her deal, assuring him that she will be fine. Just at that moment, the others arrive and Pius approaches immediately to check her, asking Chima what is wrong with her. Chima replies that the queen is not injured, but that she has spent too much energy during her mission and needs to rest. Faced with this, Chima asks Fias to take her to the palace so that she can recover and tells the boys that they must wait in their rooms. Once in the queen's room, Chima asks Fias to inform the boys about the outcome of the battle while she stays to take care of her. Nearby, Adele visits the protagonist in his room to talk for a while. Noticing that he is worried about the queen, he tries to change the subject by saying that he likes Chima. However, this comment does not please the protagonist very much, who believes that it is not the right time to talk about that. A few seconds later, Fias appears at the door and warns them that they should not leave their rooms without warning. The protagonist, eager to know the state of the queen, asks him how she is. Fias, with some annoyance, replies that she will soon be well. Adele, without wasting time, asks if they managed to defeat Val, to which Fias replies with a simple yes, confirming that their mission in the kingdom has ended. With this, the boys begin to prepare to say goodbye to the queen and return home. Meanwhile, in the Dark Kingdom, Grossa walks tiredly towards her home after the battle. On the way, she meets Balis, who, despite noticing her exhaustion, tells her that he needs her to take a new message to the realm of light. Grossa sighs, complaining that she will have to return immediately, although deep down she likes the idea of seeing the protagonist again. The next day, the boys meet with Queen Iris to thank her for her help against Val. She, with humility, tells them that she only did what she had to do and expresses her concern for the damage caused in the Dark Kingdom during Val's capture. Her sincerity moves the boys, and Adele thanks her for her interest, assuring her that they will do everything possible to put an end to the war between both kingdoms. Just at that moment, a soldier enters hastily to announce that a new envoy from the Dark Kingdom has arrived. The queen tells him to let her pass, and, upon entering the hall, Grossa introduces herself to them, delivering a message from the king requesting to extend the truce until the damage in the Dark Kingdom is repaired. Chima, without hesitation, tells Grossa that she will prepare a room for her, which surprises the boys. Grossa, somewhat embarrassed, apologizes for the inconvenience, but Queen Iris, instead of being upset, is happy that they will stay a few more days. With a smile, she offers them to tour the palace grounds with her, assuring them that, thanks to Chima, she feels better. To finish recovering, she believes it is necessary to take some time to get to know her own home better and strengthen the truce between the kingdoms. Later, they all walk towards the garden and there they meet Tio, the younger brother of Shama and Fias. He is happy to see his brothers and the queen, but he is scared when Shama tells him that the boys are from the Dark Kingdom. However, seeing Grossa's kind look, he realizes that they are good people. At that moment, Fias asks the child what he is doing there, and he tells them that he is healing a small injured animal, immediately running to use magic and heal the small flying monster before everyone's astonished eyes. After seeing him, Fias asks him how he does that and he replies that Shama had taught him, and she tells him that Tio has a lot of talent. Next, Pius complains because he thought his brother would be a soldier like him, and the child replies that he wants to be something more than a simple general. All this makes everyone laugh, advising Fias to work harder so that his brother follows in his footsteps. Right after that, the little monster flies away to play and Grossa tells them that, although they are very tender, the monsters in her kingdom behave very badly. Suddenly, the boys realize that the fashions of their kingdoms are very different, so they ask Fias and Adele to change their clothes to see how they would look with a good change of style. After exchanging their clothes and leaving the hallway, the boys like the change. In fact, the queen tells Fias that that color suits him very well, so Shama and Grossa are encouraged to exchange their clothes as well, and the queen accompanies them. When they come out, the boys tell them that they look very good and they feel strange to see their clothes on someone else. else. Later, the boys play chess and everyone beats Fizz, making him angry and asking for a rematch. However, the protagonist's stomach rumbles and Shama decides to make dinner. At dinner time, Grossa tells Shama that the food smells very good and offers anchovies from the Dark Kingdom to share. After trying the food, the queen asks the protagonist if he likes it and he replies that it needs salt, and Adele thinks the same. Seeing this, Grossa asks them to try her anchovies so that they can realize the differences in the way of cooking. So, after trying the anchovies, the queen tells them that for there to be harmony between their kingdoms it is better to know the differences. A few seconds later, the protagonist combines the anchovies with his food from the kingdom, and they love the taste. Soon after, the others also combine them and realize that they really like the taste, encouraging everyone to eat a little more until they finish the food and the anchovies. When they finish eating, Tio is happy to try something different and Adele complains that the anchovies are also finished. After listening to him, Fias tells him that in the kingdom there is something that tastes better, something that tastes even better than anchovy soup, and those are the wild vegetables that the queen harvests. These words make the protagonist remember the vegetables of his kingdom and believe that those there must taste better because they have a lot of light. Next, the queen has the idea of going to look for vegetables in the kingdom's garden the following morning, and they clearly accept. Late that night, the protagonist is in a hallway with Grossa, and she asks him if he has trouble sleeping, to which the protagonist replies that Queen Iris is a normal person, and Grossa tells him that he is too and when he is king, she will support him in everything he needs. But now she needs to sleep to go get vegetables very early. The next day, while they walk in search of the vegetables, Tio and Queen Iris run through the garden leaving everyone else behind, meeting shortly after near a large tree. The queen tells them that this place is perfect to start, and to make it more fun, Adele proposes a couple's competition to see who collects the most vegetables quickly. This idea makes Fias and Grossa think that it is an opportunity to get closer to the queen and the protagonist. However, Adele's idea is to form couples that are made up of a representative from each kingdom so that they can get to know each other and share, although his true intention is to get closer to Shama. Grossa doesn't like that idea, who accepts the proposal shortly after because she believes it is fair that they share and get to know each other. However, Fias thinks that no matter how the combinations are made, he must accompany the queen to protect her. In that, Queen Iris tells them that they must be careful because some vegetables can be poisonous, then explaining how to collect them to avoid getting hurt or damaging the plant. Realizing that whoever participates with the queen has advantages, they say to let her collect alone, so the protagonist will participate with Tio, Adele will go with Shama, and Fias will accompany Grossa. Next, the groups divide to find the best vegetables, so Adele takes the opportunity to get closer to Shama, but she remains completely distant. Although shortly after analyzing the situation she tries to enjoy the experience and relaxes. Nearby, the protagonist and Tio find a plant shaped like a bird's foot and ask the queen if it can be eaten, to which she replies that yes and that its roots are a medicine, leaving the protagonist completely amazed. In that, Tio runs in search of more plants and the queen asks the protagonist if he can accompany her and he accepts. Behind them are Fias and Grossa, who watch sadly as the protagonist unwittingly approaches the queen. This situation makes Fias very angry, so he prepares to attack the protagonist with his sword, and Grossa tells him that he would not be able to hurt him. After listening to her, Fias realizes that the people in black are very similar to them, and this makes Grossa tell him that the reason she admires the protagonist is because he does not want to kill anyone, but to make everyone happy. At the end of the morning, everyone meets at the tree and the queen checks their baskets of vegetables, saying excitedly that the protagonist's team collected many vegetables and did very well. Then, approaching Adele's team, the queen congratulates them for collecting some sprouts just in time to eat them. Finally, the queen approaches Fias' team and tells him that almost all the plants they collected cannot be eaten, so the boys feel very bad, and she tells them that when they are not sure they should ask better. In that, the protagonist and Adele count what they have in their baskets and the protagonist's team clearly wins. Afterwards, the queen tells them that all those vegetables will be used to cook the food, so the boys split up to find dry branches and clean water to cook. During their search, Tio, who was with the boys, gets lost and they prepare to look for him. Shortly after, the protagonist arrives at the lake and asks the queen about Tio, but as he approaches he trips and the two fall into the water. Upon leaving, the protagonist feels bad for having wet the queen and she tells him that Tio went with Shama and Grossa. After drying their clothes, the queen and the protagonist reunite with the others, and Grossa realizes that they seem very close, immediately joining the group and waiting for Fias and Adele to light the fire so that the girls can cook. During the meal, the boys enjoy the taste of the vegetables, although it seems that Grossa is missing salt, so Shama takes out a small jar of salt to put on the vegetables and tells her that they don't find much in their kingdom. After tasting the vegetables with salt, Fias proposes to the boys that they make an agreement to exchange products from kingdom to kingdom, and it occurs to the queen that they should not only make exchanges, since it would also be very good to spend time together. Days later, the boys must leave for the Kingdom of Darkness by order of the king, and the queen sends them gifts, which Grossa keeps on the ship. When the moment of farewell arrives, Fias asks Adele to do the right thing when returning to his kingdom. Thus, after handing him his weapons, Fias takes them to the Queen's hall to say goodbye to her. Upon arriving, the Queen gives Adele a letter requesting a commercial agreement between the two worlds and alliances to maintain balance. However, Adele tells her that this balance is only a dream for some, since while they enjoy the light, in their world they live under the shadows, as if they were literally the yin and yang. Everyone is struck by Adele's words, and Queen Iris tells them that this is how the world has been since the beginning. These words do not please Adele, who quickly approaches the queen to attack her with his sword without Fias and Shama being able to help her. But before he can touch her, the protagonist uses his sword to pierce him, so everyone believes that the protagonist is a barbarian who solves everything with violence, and Fias captures him. At that moment, on the ship, Grossa sees the vegetables that the White Kingdom is giving them and thinks that she should bring them something on her next visit, feeling that soon the ship moves, so she asks the soldiers what is happening. They explain that they must leave immediately because the protagonist was arrested and the soldiers of the White Kingdom are approaching to attack them. All this confuses Grossa a lot because she doesn't know what is going to happen with Adele and the protagonist. Later, Fias thinks angrily about what happened, and although Shama tries to console him, he doesn't understand why they must always fight each other. This situation does not please Tio either, who thinks that it is not good to fight forever and hopes to create a world in which there are no fights. Nearby, in front of the Mother Rune, Queen Iris also meditates on what happened and feels that she cannot bear to live in a world with so many differences. Next, the Mother Rune tells Queen Iris that she must make the decision about what they should protect. After listening to her, the queen feels curious to understand these words and listens to her very attentively. At the same time, in his cell, the protagonist remembers what happened after saving the queen and believes that Adele must have received orders to kill the queen without him knowing. But he clearly chose to save her, even if that is not the best for his kingdom. Suddenly, a white cat appears in his cell, opens the door and helps him escape from the guards, accompanying him to the limits of his kingdom where his sword awaits him stuck on the ground. Upon arriving at this place, the cat transforms into Queen Iris, as we clearly knew, and she falls into the arms of the protagonist. After a few seconds of staring at each other, we see how the protagonist takes the queen's hand and she tells him that by doing so she feels that they help each other and that the balance between the two worlds is possible. Her words move the protagonist a lot, who feels that they both have the same goal, to protect and make their kingdoms happy. And he promises to support her in her goal even from afar, then asking her to fight for what she believes, because he will be the next King of Darkness, and promises that together they will achieve peace between the two worlds. After hearing this, the queen promises him that each one will support the other from their kingdom. A few moments later, seeing that the soldiers are looking for them, the protagonist accepts, and before leaving he thanks her for everything she did for him. Later that night, Queen Iris thinks about the protagonist while walking through her garden, since she knew when she saw him that he was the heir to the throne. But his way of acting did not seem like that of the future king. However, after seeing the way in which he defended her and analyzing his behavior, she now believes that his promise to bring peace to the world together. But we will see that in the next part, because this is where the video ends. Give it a like and subscribe to the channel for part 2, I would appreciate it very much. My name is Alex and I wish you a great day. God bless you. Bye.